remember him the way you remember a storm that passed through a small town. Sudden, a little violent, and then leaving the streets smelling different for days. He came in late, just after the dinner rush had thinned, and the little place where I sat felt like it had shrunk down to just the counter and him. He wore a dark coat buttoned against the wind, a scarf rolled neat and expensive around his throat. When he took off his gloves, you could see the shape of tools not unlike the ones I keep in my purse. A careful, practiced set of hands. The waitress that night, Sophie, saw him first. She had that way of noticing people that made regulars think she was nosy and strangers think she was kind. "Table for one?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. He nodded without smiling and chose the booth by the window, where he could watch headlights smear across rain-burnished glass. There's something about people who build empires that you notice at once. They move less through the room and more through the air. An economy of movement, the economy of certainty. But that night his certainty looked cracked. He stared out at the street for a long time, then at the empty chair across from him, as if waiting for an argument with a ghost. Sophie brought his coffee, black, no sugar, and lingered like she always did with patrons who looked like they needed the company more than the drink. "You look like you've had a day," she said, half apology, half invitation. He glanced up, eyes a clear, tired gray. When he spoke, his voice was careful and soft. The kind of soft that felt like someone has practiced being soft for private use only. "You could say that." It wasn't long before the conversation started. Not the small talk of weather and specials, but the quick exchanges that dig in, where he'd been, how he'd gotten so far, what stood on the other side of his work. He told pieces. She gave pieces back. There was an economy to it. Like two people trading valuables they didn't want to carry alone. He confessed a line that landed like a dropped coin. "People expect you to be satisfied when you have everything," he said. "But everything is loud. It never lets you hear what you're missing." Sophie wiped the counter slowly, evident and steady. "So what does please you?" she asked, cheeky but not cruel. The question hung there, and a few regulars started to listen. The bus driver at the corner. The woman with newspaper spectacles, me in my booth pretending to write. He smiled. The kind of smile that is used to getting its way. "That's the problem," he said. "I don't know anymore what will." He looked back out the window, and for a breath you sensed a man used to controlling outcomes, now wrestling with the only thing money can't fix, the shape of a life. Sophie leaned forward, elbows on chrome, eyes kind. "Try harder, then," she said with one of those half-teasing, half-serious smiles that somehow saw through you. A challenge disguised as banter. He cocked his head, amused. "Oh? And how exactly do you suggest I try harder?" "You could start by listening," she said. "Not the talking that waits for you to respond. Real listening. People are tired of being fixed. They want someone to sit and understand." There was silence then, a good kind of silence. He set his fingers around the warm mug as if the heat were an answer he hadn't had before. For an odd moment, the entire diner condensed to that exchange. A man who had bought yachts and headlines, and a woman who kept this place open so others wouldn't drift through the night alone. 2 minutes into that quiet, Sophie glanced my way and offered the kind of small, human CTA that never felt like advertising in a place like ours. "If you've ever had to try harder to be heard," she said to our few patrons, "tell someone tonight. Don't let the day end with the things you didn't say." She folded her hands by her apron, not pushing anything but opening a door. He laughed softly, the sound a mix of embarrassment and relief. "I suppose a billionaire asking someone to teach him how to listen must make for a good headline." "Headlines don't know how to keep you warm," she said. "Coffee does sometimes." She topped off his cup the way she topped off the night, quietly, without ceremony. I watched him from my booth, watching the way his jaw relaxed as if someone had finally loosened a knot he didn't know was there. He talked about the satellite deals, the boardrooms, the speeches he'd given, but then, almost like lowering a mask, he talked about the quiet, the empty lobby in his penthouse, the echo of applause that never reached the rooms where people lived. "I thought filling my life would quiet the noise," he murmured. Instead, it made the silence louder. Sophie's answer was that patient, impossible to argue with thing. "Then fill it with things that don't make noise. The quiet gets lonely. But it doesn't have to be empty." She said it like she'd learned, the truth in 100 late shifts. There. was a smallness to the moment that had nothing to do with money. The gentle way she nudged his conversation away from PR speak and toward what lived under the surface. For the first time since he'd sat down, his eyes were not calculating an angle. They were simply looking at her, really seeing her. Outside, rain traced the city into streaked watercolor. Inside, we all listened as the man told of a daughter he'd stopped seeing because of deals that required being away, of missed birthdays and apologies sent by the wrong mediums, emails, flowers arranged like tax deductions, messages that felt like responsibilities rather than love. "She's at the age where memory is choosing what it keeps," he said quietly, and you could hear the ache in the room. Sophie's voice broke the smallness with a practical kindness. "Start small," she suggested. "A phone call that isn't a speech. A visit that isn't a surprise but a promise kept. Try harder by trying simple." He looked at her and something shifted. He traced the rim of the coffee cup with his thumb, a thoughtful, steady motion. "I'm used to throwing money at problems," he confessed. "I never considered that what I was buying was distance." She smiled, and the whole diner warmed a degree. "Money can buy things," she said, "but it can't buy the person who wants to sit with yours when you're quiet." The conversation continued long past when most people think a polite man should be through breakfast and gone. They spoke about time and regret, and the stupid little rituals that become the scaffolding of real life, things you can't outsource. He asked about her life, and she answered with an easy honesty. She kept the place afloat because her mother taught her how to care, and because somewhere in the small hours she believed in the human need to be witnessed. When the clock neared midnight and the late-night crowd thinned, he reached slowly for his coat. He hesitated before standing, and for a shocking second he seemed uncertain whether to return to the life that had hollowed him or to risk starting with the small thing Sophie suggested. He stood up finally, left some bills on the table that would have embarrassed a lesser diner with how generous they were, and then, rather than disappearing into the night like a man who buys solitude, he did something else. He turned back to Sophie. "I'll try harder," he said, not as a boast but as a promise. "But I need help. Will you help me remember how to do that?" Sophie's eyes softened. She tucked her hair behind her ear, an unstudied gesture. "I don't do counseling," she teased, but her smile made the offer whole. "Just coffee, a listening ear, and the kind of truth that comes free in the small hours." He nodded, as if that answer would be enough. For the first time since I'd seen him, he looked like a man who might really mean to change something. As he left, I realized the simple truth that had guided the night. Wealth can make the world wide, but it can also make the loneliest rooms. What he wanted, without admitting it, was not to be fixed or dazzled, but to be present in a life that could sustain him. And sometimes, often even, the person who shows you how to start is someone who's never had a headline. That night stayed with me long after the cafe had closed. I kept replaying the moment. Her flushed cheeks, his quiet laughter, the way they looked at each other as if the world had folded itself down to that one booth in the corner. I should have gone home, but something told me the story wasn't over. 2 nights later, he came again. Same time, same seat. Only this time, Emily wasn't working. She'd taken the evening shift off, said she had something personal. Still, the billionaire, Daniel Cole, sat down, ordered his black coffee, and waited. Every few minutes, he'd glance toward the door, that confident stillness cracking just a little. "Sir, would you like to order something else?" I asked, pretending not to notice his disappointment. He shook his head. "No, just keep the coffee hot." That night he stayed for 2 hours. He barely touched his drink. When he finally left, he left a note under the cup. "For the one who keeps trying." A $100 bill tucked beneath it. The next day, Emily returned, quieter than usual. I told her about the note. Her hands trembled when she read it. "He came back?" she whispered. "And waited?" 2 hours, I said. "Didn't take a sip." She didn't reply, but I could see her heart wrestling inside her. That evening she spent extra time fixing her hair, her makeup. She even wore the gold locket she usually kept in her purse, a gift from her late mother. She didn't say why, but I knew she hoped he'd come, and he did. The bell above the door chimed around 9 p.m. Daniel walked in, coat collar turned up against the wind. Their eyes met instantly, that same quiet electricity pulsing between them. She moved to his table without her usual smile, but her voice was steady. "Back for more criticism?" He chuckled. "I was hoping for redemption. Maybe I'm tired of trying so hard," she said softly. Then stop trying, he replied. Just talk to me. It wasn't flirtation now. It was confession. Two lonely people trying to make sense of why they mattered to each other at all. I kept wiping tables nearby, pretending to be busy, but my chest tightened watching them. He told her about his late wife, how she'd died 3 years ago in a car crash while he was on a business call. He said guilt had followed him everywhere since. Emily listened, eyes glistening, her hand unconsciously tightening around the locket. When he noticed, he asked, "Who did you lose?" "My mom," she whispered. She worked in a diner, too. She always said people don't come for coffee. They come for warmth. Daniel smiled faintly. Then your mother was wiser than I've ever been. For the next hour they talked, not about money or loss, but about simple things. Late-night walks, burnt toast, the comfort of being seen. There was no pretense, no performance, just two souls peeling back their defenses. When the clock hit midnight, he stood up to leave. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said. "You'll criticize my coffee again?" He smiled. "I'll pretend it's the coffee I come for." And he left. From that night, his visits became regular. Every evening, same table. Sometimes he brought her flowers. Sometimes just silence, the kind that feels safe. The diner changed, too. The other waitresses whispered about her, the lucky one. But Emily never looked proud. She looked grateful and scared. Weeks passed before the breaking point came. One stormy night, a man entered, suit soaked, eyes cold. He was Daniel's lawyer. He handed Emily an envelope. "Mr. Cole won't be coming anymore," he said. "He's leaving the city. He asked me to deliver this." Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a note. "You gave me back the part of me I thought was gone. Don't wait for me. Live. And if the coffee ever gets cold, remember, warmth begins with you." Emily cried right there, the rain matching her tears. I wanted to comfort her, but I couldn't. Some stories aren't meant to be interrupted. Months went by. The seat in the corner stayed empty. She stopped wearing lipstick, stopped humming when she worked. I thought maybe that was it, another unfinished chapter. Until one late spring night the bell rang again. I looked up. Daniel stood there, a small smile on his face, no lawyer, no suit. Just him. Emily froze, tray in hand. "You came back," she whispered. "I realized something," he said. "You can have everything and still feel empty. But if you lose everything and still find warmth somewhere, maybe that's what home means." She didn't speak. She just stepped forward and hugged him. Not a movie kind of hug, a trembling real one. The kind that says, "I missed you, but I'm still scared." When she finally pulled back, she laughed softly. "You're still hard to please," he smiled. "Only with coffee." And as they sat together again, I realized the story I'd witnessed wasn't about a billionaire and a waitress. It was about two people who stopped pretending they weren't broken and found beauty in the cracks. That night, as I locked the doors, I looked at their reflection in the glass. Her leaning forward, him smiling quietly, and thought, some people don't need perfection. They just need warmth served right. If you've ever met someone who reminded you that kindness still exists, you'll understand what I saw that night.